This is a complete video on human rights.
So, to understand this topic, human rights, completely and thoroughly, we have to cover the following given topics, which are firstly, what is human right? Meaning, what is the meaning of human rights? What are the essential features or characteristics or basic elements that ultimately makes human rights? Secondly, we will understand the history of human rights. We'll track the history of human rights, like from where human rights have been known to the people, from where they have taken their birth, etc. Thirdly, what is the watershed moment in the history of human rights? Means an event marking a unique or important historical change, of course, one on which important developments depend, etc. Then we will understand the generations of rights, like first generation, second generation, third generation, and in those generations, which kind of rights taken birth. Then we will cover the human rights regime, meaning the conventions, the international institutions, those have been made just to implement the human rights. Then we will understand that what are the provisions that have been made in India related to human rights. Then there would be a way forward. So, firstly, what is the meaning of human rights? So, as we all know, that human rights are those rights which, by the virtue of being human, we have been entitled to. Meaning, irrespective of the situation, conditions, region, race, caste, etc., we all have few rights that we get by the virtue of being human and by birth. And these human rights have been given to us not by the government of any country, but naturally. So, let's understand human rights more deeply. So, first of all, I would like to make you understand that human rights are universal, means, regardless of race, religion, gender, caste, etc., they have been given to all human beings everywhere, whether they are in any country or they go to the other country. Secondly, human rights are fundamental in nature. Like, they are so important for the human being to thrive, to develop, to grow, that they cannot be violated at any cost. Thirdly, these are individual and interdependent, means they cannot be divided because they are interdependent on each other. Like, if you're given civil right or political right, you have to be given economic right too. So these all are correlated and equally important. Like, if I have given you the right that you can go to a cafe and have any food that you want, so this right have been given to you. But if you don't have any money in your pocket, how would you be able to buy anything for yourself? Means economic right should have been given to you. Like, for the fulfillment or enjoyment of one right, you have to be given the other rights too. Next, human rights are inalienable, means these should not be taken away except in specific situations or according to the due process of law. It means all the rights that you have been given can be put a restriction on in some situations, like in a crime or war situation, if you are in harm to the country or to the masses, etc. Next is, human rights are both rights and obligations. Like, one human is entitled for his or her rights, but he or she is also responsible for other rights. Like, they have to respect and protect other rights too. So after that, let's track the history of human rights, like how human rights have been developed in the past. So in 1215, there was a document named Magna Carta, came in England, signed by King John. This Magna Carta gave rights to the church and talked about swift justice, that justice should be done fastly and quickly. As you know, that justice delayed is justice denied. Secondly, in 1689, Bill of Rights came in England that limited the power of the king, and rights were given to the parliament by this Bill of Rights. But in both of these cases, like by Magna Carta or by Bill of Rights, rights have been given to the church, parliamentarians, and member of like high classes. But they are not giving rights to the general people, normal people, common people. But in 1776, this thing got changed, because in 1776, US Declaration of Independence came, and in that declaration, right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness were given to the general people of America. And on the same lines, in 1789, French Declaration came, which talked about right to life, liberty, and fraternity. Then in 1815, Congress of Vienna, a meeting happened that tried to or attempt to abolish the slave trade. At that point of time, peoples were traded as a slave. So Congress of Vienna attempted to abolish that thing. 1901, International Labour Office got established. That office tried to or attempted to improve the working conditions for the laborers. And let me tell you one more thing, that this International Labour Office became the specialized agency of United Nations in 1945. Then in 1907, Hague Convention happened. In that convention, there was a demand to regulate the conduct of war. Like, people were talking about that the conduct in the war is not just and fair. There should be some rules and regulations which should be put on both the parties who are in the war, and whoever the person who is injured or get wounds should be taken care of as a human. After this, let's understand the watershed moments in the history of human rights. So what happened is, in 1948, on 10th of December, United Nations General Assembly adopted a document named Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And that's why on 10th of December we also celebrate Human Right Day. Then this document is also known as Resolution 217. It was signed in Paris, France. It is consisted of 30 articles. Like in these 30 articles, there are the human rights that have been mentioned. This declaration ended the 300-year-old Treaty of Westphalia in 1648. Now, let's understand why this declaration ended this treaty. So, what happens is Treaty of Westphalia gives the states or countries the exclusive jurisdiction on their internal affairs or on the citizens that are living in their country. But this declaration talks about human rights and it says that no, masses are not your exclusive jurisdiction. Every country have to follow some human rights that have been mentioned in this declaration. But as this treaty is not legally binding on the countries, so many countries did not sign it or did not follow it. Now after this, as this was not legally binding, that's why United Nations again held some conventions, two major international conventions of 1966. First one was International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights, and second one was International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. These two conventions were attempted to be made legally binding over the countries, and these two covenants, along with Universal Declaration of Human Rights, are known as International Bill of Human Rights. After this, we will talk about the generations of human rights or rights. So there are three generations of rights: first generation, second generation, third generation. First generation was considered to be in 18th or 19th centuries. At that point of time, French Revolution, American Revolution were happening, and democracy was talked about, like democracy was going to be established. So in this generation, civic and political rights were given. The key theme was the liberty, and the rights that were given in first generation were right to life, liberty, property, non-discrimination, freedom from arbitrary arrest, freedom of thought. And the documents in which these rights have been covered are United Nations Declaration, in which Articles 3 to 21 talks about first generation rights, then in International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. Now we will talk about second generation rights, which came in 20th century. After getting influence from the writings of Marx to abolish the capitalism and to establish socialism, these rights came in forth. So ultimately, the second generation rights is a type of right in which economic, social, cultural rights have been talked about. Equality is the key theme of this generation. And the rights that were given in this generation were social work rights, social security, healthcare, education, paid holidays. It means this was completely covering the attempts that can improve the condition of workers. And in UN Declaration, Article 22 to 27 talks about second generation rights, and International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights also talks about second generation rights. Then let's talk about third generation rights, which came in 1945 or after that, after World War II ended. This talks about solidarity rights, and the key theme is fraternity. In this third generation of rights, self determination, peace, right to development, right for environmental protection have been given. And the first and foremost convention on human environment, that was the Stockholm Convention, covers these rights, and Rio Earth Summit 1992 also covers these rights. Now let's talk about human rights regimes. Means which conventions or which commissions and which international bodies are there to implement the human rights. So first of all, let's talk about United Nations Commission on Human Rights. This was established in 1946 by ECOSOC. ECOSOC is United Nations Economic and Social Council, and this UNCHR is consisted of 53 members, and the term of each member is 3 years. Next is the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights. This was the department of the Secretariat of the United Nations, and it was established by World Conference on Human Rights in 1993. The eighth and the current High Commissioner is Volker Turk of Austria, who has succeeded Michelle Bachelet of Chile on 8th September 2022. As this first body, United Nations Commission on Human Rights, faced a lot of criticism because it was not successful in implementing human rights. That's why it was replaced by Nations Human Rights Council. This was established in 2006 by United Nations General Assembly. It was consisting of 47 members, and the term of members is 3 years. That could not be more than two consecutive terms. And this holds regular sessions 3 times a year in March, June, and September. These were the all important facts regarding this body. And more information about this is that India has become member of this council in 2019. After this, what are the provisions related to human rights in India? We have to understand this. So, according to National Human Rights Commission, the definition that has been given in India about human rights is that human rights are the rights relating to life, liberty, property, equality, dignity, etc., that are guaranteed by the Indian Constitution. So, National Human Rights Commission is a body that has been established in 1993 in India under a statute named Protection of Human Rights Act 1993. And this act provides establishment of State Human Rights Commission. So, human rights that are incorporated in Indian laws are in Part 3 of the Fundamental Right from 14 to 32. That's all about Indian provisions. Now let's see what is the way forward as human rights after these so many bodies, institutions, laws, conventions are still facing a lot of tragedy. They are miserable. They are continuously violated and breached. That's why there is a way forward. That we have to ensure timely and effective service delivery. Firstly, then focus should be on the underdeveloped and developing countries. Then, in case of India, NHRC should be substantially redesigned in order to make it more effective watchdog of human rights. Like there are few lacunas, or there are few mistakes that has been incorporated in this commission, so they need to be substantially redesigned. Then all laws and provisions should be aligned according to latest demand of the circumstances, because human rights were facing challenges in older times were different from the human rights facing challenges in current situations. So that's why the laws that have been made for previous time challenges and problems have to be changed according to the changing circumstances. So this was the presentation on human rights. Thank you so much.